Okay, and welcome to the Miracle Network in our next episode of Out of the Rooms, where people can learn more about all different types of recovery and really just getting a sense of what it's like for those of us who've been on this journey of recovery. And I'm so excited to introduce my next guest. His name is Mike, and he's from the Sober Press. I met him on Instagram, and that to me, that's just a testament to the fact that our recovery community can be found any and everywhere. I was really attracted to the content he has on his page, and so I asked him to
Oh,
join
thank
me
you.
in this session. So, without further ado, Mike, tell us about you.
Hi, my name is Mike. I am the founder and sole person running Sober Press. It's a passion project.
Wonderful.
Sober Press started with the onset of COVID, and I had no idea how I was going to make it through and continue to be sober. Perhaps we get back to that at some point, but my mission with Sober Press is I'm going to try, but reach 1 million people. And if I can, actually create change within one, I love to feature stories of recovery, experience, strength, and hope on the written word. I've always thought there was this intimacy of words that when you hold it in your hand, you can really sort of, you know, become a participant. And there's something really interesting when you have that intimacy. I feel like the effect is a bit deeper. And someday I would love to also do podcasts. But for now, I'm putting out stories of recovery and celebrating people.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. So, tell me, how did you get to recovery?
So, I just to, rewind all the way back to my childhood. I have amazing parents. I'm first generation American, Cuban descent. My parents early on struggled, to make ends meet.
Mhm.
They made sure that we were in private schools, and it was very loving and supporting. So it's in a way like a very normal sort of childhood.
Yeah.
But I always found myself as this kid who was different. I was like, you know part comedian and then also part introvert, and I knew I was different, and I always felt that way. And somehow I kind of felt a little bit isolated,
Hmm.
and it really kind of killed my self-esteem growing up. I didn't do well in school, all through school. In fact, I was always like on the verge of, failing and not making it to the next grade. But
Yes.
I did. I never
Mhm.
got held back, fortunately. And, when it came time to college, I had to take all the remedial classes and yada, yada, yada. And, you know, something, a light came on. And it was like this bizarre experience where somehow I felt challenged and I felt celebrated.
Ah,
And I had built these incredible relationships with professors, and I did well. I got scholarships.
that's
Um,
wonderful.
I made dean's list, president's list. I didn't graduate cum laude or anything, but I did well, and remarkably well, to the point where mom and dad were raising their eyebrows and going, "Are you cheating? How are you cheating college?" It's like, no. Somehow I got interested. Um, the arts have always been celebrated within the house, and that was something that I absolutely loved, and I always had my mindset in pursuing the arts. But my poor dad was, oh, so you like the arts, so let me introduce you to engineering. That's a really good career you
Mm.
have. And he bought me all the instruments and compasses and protractors and blah blah, which I loved, but I wasn't drawing plans, or I'm going off doing other things. And
Yeah.
that was part of my mind. Was I'm a huge daydreamer, and I just would get lost in just the process. um but in high school I learned that somehow in the commercial arts field, in graphic design, that's
Ah,
where I wanted to go. And after I finished college, well, actually, art school and college overlapped because, unbeknownst to my parents, I went and snuck into, art school and did both at the same time. As I was finishing college, I started art school, and they didn't know that. They were so angry when we're in the car after getting my diploma, and they're like, well, let's go celebrate. And I had to come clean. I'm like, well, guys, I have critique week. All my stuff is due.
oh my
They're like,
goodness.
what's critique week? What are you doing? I'm like, well, I've been in art school this last quarter. I said, and they didn't know.
They're like, what?
But I did really well in art school. I got scholarships there as well. And I had gotten recruited to Portland, Oregon. I had interviewed in New York and Chicago and LA and all the usual places you would find advertising,
Hmm.
because my discipline was advertising art direction,
Okay.
which, um, is a really difficult field to get into, like right out of the gate. Usually you have to, be an apprentice, and, you have to work your way up and do that. But I got a job as an art director right off the bat.
Mhm.
And it was for a very small firm in Portland. And I was literally thrown into the fire. Here I am, 25 years old. I didn't, we were living in Atlanta. I was like suddenly relocating to the opposite part of the United States. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I remember landing in Portland, and it was just 40 degrees and just
Oh my
raining. And
goodness.
it was just so gross. And I cried. I was like, what did I just do? I had everything in 2 suitcases, everything that I was going to get started with. And it was just clothes. I didn't have a place to live, all that. And, um, I was also the only art director at the agency. So all the pressure was on me.
Oh wow. So
Um,
it's not like you had like a supervisor to like mentor you through this process. You were just
my supervisor slash partner was the partner at the agency. He
hmm,
was the creative director.
got it.
And um, talk about tough love. He was a great guy, and he was a super good mentor. I took that job knowing that two other art directors were fired before me. So it was a little bit scary, but I spent 7 years there. And that's literally like having the low self-esteem as a child,
Hmm.
also having a lot of anxiety. That's when I really started using drugs and alcohol. Literally within 2 years, I was, already like heavily drinking and smoking weed. And I had I drank in high school, and I smoked weed in high school, but not to the degree that I started in Portland. And I just found that it was like this coping mechanism that kind of helped me sort of, you know, make it through each day. And it was super high pressure. Here I am, this young kid that suddenly I'm working with professionals 25, 30 years under their belt, and I have to, direct them. They didn't like that. I got nicknamed Doogie Howser, and it's
No way.
bullshit.
Oh gosh.
But within the first year, I was named the best creative in the Northwest under 30, and I had already started winning, lots of accolades and awards, um, and along with that came a lot of celebrating, and I soon found out that it was okay to, roll into work and pour a beer, in the morning if I wanted. We had beer accounts, so we had beers on tap there, and it was just there, and it was accepted. That was the thing. But later on, I also learned that, also climbing out in the fire escape and smoking out, during lunchtime was also okay. Nobody
Really?
said anything. So
Yeah.
I would do that along with a bunch of other people, because the agency grew, more people came in, and, we would just pile out in the fire escape and chill out, and that was kind of the thing, have a couple of beers at lunch, but the work still had to get done, and everything was, on a schedule and a deadline, which added a lot of pressure, but that was part of the relief. Um, so I had already started like that, as sort of my beginnings in addiction. I spent about 7 years in Portland, and I moved to Austin. After that, I got recruited to a very large agency, one of the most well-known agencies in the Southwest, and suddenly the accounts that I was working on were $1 million accounts, and I was also a leader. There were people above me, but I was under a lot of pressure, and I found myself drinking and using even more. Um, we'd go on shoots, and it was like party time. It was this accepted thing. Or if we won an account first thing in the morning, you roll in, they would announce it, and everybody was celebrating with champagne first thing in the morning. And that agency also had beers on tap. Many of the people would have booze parked at their desk, at the ready. So, oh, you're having a bad day? Here, let me pour you a shot.
No. Where were these people when I was working? When I was in my heyday?
Friday afternoon, like around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they would go around with a cocktail cart, and they would make a cocktail for you. And usually it would circulate a few times, and by the time day was over, it was happy hour, and all bets were off.
Exactly.
Honestly. It's like, forget it.
You just continue. Absolutely.
So that was my path for 19 years at that agency. And in that time, I tried, rehab once, and I did it for about a year via AA, and relapsed. And it was this weird feeling of coping, without the booze and having those kinds of pressures. I was at that point in my career, I was traveling internationally constantly. I was working on BMW Global, and so we're shooting cars all over the world, and I'm in a situation where we have these really high profile German photographers that love to party, and it didn't last, my sobriety. So toward the end, um, not to get into the weeds of how
Hmm.
bad it got, but toward the end, I found myself in rehab again. And this time I had hit rock bottom worse than ever. It was to the point where I literally didn't show up for work. I had stopped calling in sick. I would had to shake so bad that I was literally drinking vodka and Pedialyte in order to curb the shakes. And I just gave up. It was literally like a situation where I was done. I was cooked. I was burnt out, and I just needed a way out. And I found that in my second, rehab, I had met with a social worker and a counselor and my own personal counselor, and they were all like, hands down, you need to quit that job. It's killing you.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, you are gonna kill yourself
Wow.
drinking. Um, and so August of 2019, was it August of 2019? I think, yeah. Um, I actually quit the job. I put in my notice, and I think not too long after that, in the year after 2020, is when we were on full lockdown, and we,
Hmm.
had to isolate ourselves once again because,
Yeah.
or I say once again because I was in isolation by choice because I was drinking so much. But
Hmm.
I found myself in that isolation situation again, this time sober because of COVID. Um, so I literally was beside myself. The meetings were gone because I was going to face meetings. Had to wear masks. It was like everything changed, and it was like
Everything changed.
surreal.
Everything.
And so I found myself alone at home, and I did actually have a girlfriend at the time, and she encouraged me because I was noodling with this tiny idea of doing a blog where I would feature people in recovery, their stories, but I had no idea how to go about it. But having the advertising background, I full on presentation about it. And I was so excited. I would show it to friends and family. But this person in particular was like, "Well, why don't you do an Instagram?" And I was like, "Well, I have an Instagram." But she's like, "No, you need to do an Instagram that says Sober Press." And sure enough, I had secured the URL anyway. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'll search Sober Press, and it was free. So I commandeered that, and I just started posting, just things that inspired me, quotes, anything that gave me a lift. I put it forth for others,
Hmm.
and I was wildly surprised to find this incredible community on Instagram. It was like literally just a stumble into it. And to this day, I just have nothing but gratitude for that community because I don't know how I would have gotten along without them. And, I think before we started hitting the record button, you and I were talking
Yeah.
about our paths. And my path has been AA, which I liked. It worked. It was a very structured program, and there are things that really help me mentally, I think, become um, a better person, and more stable, and actually find serenity and find peace.
Mm.
And it's doing that work, that step work, that really kind of helped me along. But when I found this community, I was like, oh my God, this is my path now, you know?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
as I started featuring stories, because the Instagram took off, I started talking about putting stories out there. And literally, like, just as soon as I did that, people were submitting their stories. And since then, since October of 2020, I've been able to put a story at least every other week, um, which has
That's
been
amazing.
incredible. And
That's amazing. I mean, just
yeah,
to take it from that small idea, and you're right. I mean, the pandemic for everyone was tough, and I feel like we're still going through the aftermath of like the pandemic. It just
yeah, we're
changed
still
everything.
rebuilding.
And then to come out with the sober press and just have this small idea, and now it's it's a big deal. I find it very inspirational, and I know a lot of other people do too. What would
Thank
you tell someone who is just starting out? They're still out there, like struggling with alcohol, struggling with addiction. What is your advice to them?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to understand that unless you break the cycle, it's going to continue and it's going to get worse. And you have to have that moment of reckoning in order to break that. And that reckoning, I think a lot of us have it in different ways. For me, was just completely bottoming out to a point where I just gave up. And I knew that I needed to do something. And, I had found myself in the emergency room
Mm,
of April 18th. My sober date is April 19th, 2019. And I was in the ER literally like, half drunk. And, because a friend of mine actually found me at home because I had not shown up for work. They did
wellness check.
a wellness check on me, and they knew that, you know, um, I would be home. And my buddy, um, he was able to get into the house simply because I was having a huge remodel done.
Oh,
And the contractor, he had convinced the contractor to let him in. And he found me like face down drunk on the bed with both my dogs.
the,
Out.
your dogs. Oh,
I have two dogs, but that was the awakening. I mean, that was sort of that tap on the shoulder of, he goes, you need to go to the ER. I just need to make sure that you're going to be okay. And so I went and I remember like sitting with one of the doctors, and he was interviewing me. And at one point I said that I hate my life. And oh my God, that triggered like the Austin Police Department suicide
I'm
squad,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then social workers, and then, people of psychiatric backgrounds. And I would, and I remember like almost having to say, well, that's not what I meant. This isn't what
yeah,
I meant. And in a way, it was good because I needed to get a lot off my chest, because I did indeed hate my life. And it's not that I wanted to take it out, it was that I wanted out of this.
yeah.
And, all of them made me promise that the next day I would go into detox and follow up with rehab. I had insurance, I had really good insurance. I'd been through this before, not to this degree, but
Mhm.
I did it. And I don't know, for some reason, it just felt right. But getting back to your question, that's the kind of reckoning that I think someone new in recovery kind of has to have. They have to have that sort of awakening, that reckoning of, I need out. I need to stop doing this. Otherwise, I'm going to kill myself.
Absolutely.
And it's not, there's nothing wrong with it to ask for help. In fact, I allowed myself to get the help. I had historically been this stubborn self, sort of survivor. And I got the help. I took it. I allowed it. And it's the best thing I ever did for myself. And
I was going to say, isn't that like a relief? Because I know it was for me, because I think a lot of us are like that. We're like, we just want to do everything ourselves. I've got this. I've got it under control. And when you finally, yeah, it's just like, oh, thank goodness,
Yeah.
So how's your life different from when you were drinking and using to when you were, to now living your life of recovery?
So, I started a freelance business. And, riding the ebb and flow of that has been difficult. I don't think I could actually have done it, being under the influence all the time like I was. So, suddenly I have my own clients that I have to serve. I have Sober Press that keeps me busy. So there's plenty of work. There's always work to be done. I'm also involved as an ambassador for other people. Sober is Cool, and also Sober Hope.
Okay.
I also try to pay it forward as much as I can by helping others. If I'm asked to do a podcast, there's hands down, I'll do it, period. That's it. There's no question. Simply because it's important to get the word out. And,
Absolutely.
That has always been my mission with Sober Press, is to get the word that, no one else is alone in this, and that recovery is possible and it can be done. So, I forgot your question. I went into a tangent.
No, it's okay. How's it different now than it was then?
So, life is easier for sure. The hard, the hard parts still come. However, I think that I have a better way of coping now mentally. There's still issues that I need to work out, but for the most part, I know that serenity is something that's very important to me, peace, and having like a really good regimen. I'm up way earlier than I used to be.
Me too.
Super nice. You are too?
Yeah.
Isn't that the best?
It really is.
Going to bed at 10, waking up at 6:30. I'm like an old man.
I mean, if I had $1 for the time earlier today before we got on this call, I said, I'm going to bed by 10 o'clock. I was talking to somebody on the phone. I'll be in bed by 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So I sleep better.
Yeah.
Little things don't bother me as much as they used to. I remember I used to be an extremely cantankerous person with a very short fuse. And this gross lack of patience made me really kind of unbearable to be around. I was always, prickly, I guess.
Yeah.
Small things actually bothered me so much. And, I a lot of, I post this a lot about emotional sobriety, which is so important because, you could be sober, but then not have sort of the stability and peace of mind, and still carry sort of some of the symptoms of addiction.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people out there like that. So I think that message is just as important as the message for the newcomer, the person who's still out sick and suffering, because there's people who are in recovery that are sick and suffering. And you hit the nail on the head. It's so important. There's so many people who are in that situation. What's your advice to them about emotional sobriety?
Well, it's a very important thing to I kind of have to call it taking a good hard look at yourself in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and having an open heart with grace, which is very important. And realize, there's this self-awareness, and realize, the things that you're doing, because hurt people hurt others.
Yeah.
And um, a lot of times self-awareness is kind of like out the window, and it comes from not realizing some of the symptoms of addiction that we still carry, and that's irritability, impatience, um, and these are things that eventually will creep back up on you, and might take you down again. So it's very important to do the work. And when I say the work, if you're not an AA person, which is step work,
Mm-hmm.
so you're asked to do steps, you're asked to do a self evaluation, you're asked to confront your resentments, and, all these things. And that's just to bring you down to earth, because there is a lot of humility involved. You, a lot of us who are insecure are ego driven, and I found that, in myself. I had this huge ego, and life, if there's this saying, I've posted it before, but humble yourself or life will do it for you.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's kind of the shitty part to get to that point. But if it's a counselor, um, do that. There are a lot of people that also deal with trauma, and having that background and not being able to work through that and face it. um, and it's a difficult thing. PTSD, anything
Yes.
that might run in the background and come up as sort of um, bad behavior. I hate saying that because like, we're all human here,
Yes. But I
and we
understand what
are.
you mean.
But yeah, you know what I mean. And by the way, I have this running joke of, I think all people should go to AA and realize their faults and resentments. And
Let me just tell you, I wouldn't even say that it is a joke. I believe, like, there is a piece of me that seriously believes in that, because that was such an eye-opening experience for me. There would be a lot. I mean, it sheds light on a lot.
yeah, there's so much peace on the other side
Yeah.
of that. Um, it doesn't, kindness has this reward, and service has this reward. And I don't see it as being selfish. At first, when I started Sober Press, I felt like, oh my God, I'm getting a benefit from this. And I kind of felt guilty. And my sponsor was like, don't feel guilty. That's what service does.
Yeah.
It's reciprocal, and
It creates a
it's
win-win situation. Absolutely.
it really does. And that's, he says, you teach me, I still, he's funny because I met John back when I was in detox. He was there to speak, and the director of the facility, kind of nudged me and said, hey man, you need to go talk to John. And so I went and talked to him, and yeah, he was like already like really cool, very honest, open guy. And as you know, I got to know him, I learned that, well, I'm not taking sponsees right now, but I'll give you my phone number. And if you text me some sort of gratitude every morning, we can start from there.
Huh.
So I was like, well, does this mean you're going to be my sponsor? I didn't say that, but it was like, that was
That's what you were thinking in your head. Like, does this mean
so I'm
yes
like,
or
okay,
no?
I'll dig up some fucking gratitude. But you know what? It's damn hard to do.
Yeah.
And there were times and I would wake up in the morning in a sour mood and I would say I'm breathing. And he's like texting me back, "That's great. You're breathing, you're alive." And he would celebrate that. And I'm like, well, I meant that sarcastically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
But
it's true.
it's true. And it's like, holy shit, you kind of begin to sort of open up to, sounds so corny, but I'm going to say it, all these little gifts.
It's
And
so
when you
true.
notice that all these little gifts, it could be the flower, it could be this fragrance in the air, it could be, the warm sun on a super cold day. It's it sounds my old me would probably kick my ass and say you're so full of shit, but
But it's the
I don't
truth.
know.
It
I
is the truth.
posted recently about, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. No, you didn't interrupt me at all. Go ahead.
But no, I posted recently about Michael J. Fox had a quote about, and I can't remember it now, but it was to the effect of having gratitude is sort of the basis of uh, having gratitude sustains optimism.
Absolutely.
And I look at Michael J. Fox because he has Parkinson's,
Parkinson's.
and I lost my dad from complications from Parkinson's, and
Sorry to
that
hear.
was the story that I told about that and having gratitude. And you know, um, it was it's those are the kinds of things that I try to push out there, and sometimes it may sound kind of harsh and critical, but I don't mean them to be. It's just a lesson that I learned that I want to put out,
That you're sharing
And
with others. And I think it's very important that we continue to do that. Now, if somebody wants to, submit something to the Sober Press, how would they go about doing so?
it's so I've made it really easy. You can go on the website soberpress.org, and there's a tab that says share my story. And within that tab, now you're gonna have to do it now, right?
I will. You got it. I knew this was coming. I knew that before we got on this interview.
No.
I don't mind though. I don't mind. I really think what you create is amazing.
I never pressure anyone.
A little tidbit about me. One of the things that really, I think one of the reasons why I was attracted to your page is because I have a journalism background. I was actually my first career. So
wow.
Just like when you talk about the power of the written word and having that something to hold, we've kind of gotten away from that as a society a little bit. And so I really it really touched me to see your page. And so that's why I have no problem. I will go ahead and do that. But yeah, thank you so much for having that out.
I appreciate that. That really, that's so cool. Have you gotten in there and started reading any of the stories?
I have. They're very touching.
So Janelle is up there now.
I haven't read that one yet.
She's amazing. Oh my God. She is about to put her own book out. It's coming in September. Her story's pretty incredible and extremely inspiring. In fact, she was highlighted in Newsweek just recently. So I had I had to mention it in one of the captions.
That's awesome.
You know,
Well, I will definitely read it, and everybody viewing this can go and read that as well, because and just keep putting out great content and inspiring people by what you do and what truly lives in your heart.
That's what I do. It's a passion project, and I love what I'm doing, and I love the people that I meet, and I think I finally learned that love is the drug. I had to get that in there.
You had to. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's, I think we're all on this same journey, and, there is another quote that I absolutely love, that it's by Ram Dass, and it's as simple as, we're all just walking each other home.
I love
and
that.
there's this meaning to it that, we learn from each other. It's we reflect each other, and it gives us an opportunity and that's what the community does. And that's why, one of your questions, and I was getting to that, and I just realized when you asked, if you're newly sober, find your community, find that tribe. Some people hate that word, but find your community and find the people that are going to support you, and find those like minds, and you're going to actually have like a bit of a reckoning there too. You're going to learn that, you need the support of others to get through this, because there are going to be highs, there are going to be lows, there are going to be rough spots. But what's key is you're not alone, and you can get through it.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.